In this conversation, I'm speaking with Gina Mundy. Gina is an attorney that specializes in childbirth cases. And for over 2 decades, Gina has analyzed the mistakes that can be made during labor and delivery. Drawing on this knowledge, Gina has authored a book for parents aimed at preventing these mistakes and tragedies from happening. Gina's goal is to assist parents in preventing these mistakes and help them to have a healthy baby. Gina's going to share with us as fathers what we can do in the preparation stages for a safe childbirth. This conversation with Gina Mundy on the Dads Making a Difference podcast starts right now. Gina, welcome to the Dads Making a Difference podcast. It's great to have you on today.
Thanks, Cam, for having me. We had a great talk during pre-show, so I know it's going to be a good conversation today.
And I have to admit, we don't often have female guests on the show. I think we've had probably 4 or 5, and I'm being very conscious of bringing on a different perspective when helping fathers become better dads, but also when it comes to parenthood and what it means to be a good parent and balance, for sure, professional life with parenthood. And now I know you have some interesting backgrounds in your professional life, but I really want to get into your book today and the passion you have for helping people get set up for healthy childbirth, probably something that dads don't often think about. So I wanted to shift gears a little bit today and tell the guys listening to this is important. If you are expecting to have more children, then this is a conversation you must listen to. So Gina, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and then we can get into your work.
Oh, sure. So I have been an attorney specializing in childbirth cases for over 20 years. So a childbirth case basically involves the birth of a child when something goes wrong, whether it's a mistake or it's a complication. And the result is that baby's not born healthy. And unfortunately, I've had some very sad cases where, mom doesn't make it through childbirth. So my job as the attorney is to come in and find out, what happened, what went wrong. Why is mom not around to raise her kids, her child? Why wasn't baby born healthy? So those questions have taken me across the United States multiple times, meeting with the delivery teams, the doctors, the nurses, the midwives, basically hashing out every aspect of labor and delivery and all the decisions that are made and whatnot, everything that goes into it. So that's probably like a quick professional overview. So what I did is I took that experience, over 20 years of, analyzing these mistakes and complications. And I wrote a book to expecting parents to help them have a healthy baby and avoid these mistakes and complications. Because I can tell you the hardest part of my job is the day when I have to sit down with the families and talk about the day their baby was born or the day they lost their wife. Mm-hmm. It's hard. So basically, I wrote this book to help these, expecting parents have a healthy baby. So instead of getting involved in the aftermath of something going wrong, I'm now trying to get involved before childbirth so we can prevent parents from ever meeting me. You don't want to meet me. So
Well, I'm sure they do. You're a wonderful person, but I understand what you're saying. Your book, A Parent's Guide to Safer Childbirth, went live. You launched it in 2023. It's already a bestseller. Congratulations on that. But I think that's possibly understating the importance of it. Like, to see a book as a bestseller is one thing, but to see the content that the book has and how it can actually change the trajectory of someone's life and change the trajectory of childbirth in this case, I think is really important. Gina, can you speak to the guys listening to this who be like, oh, Cam, why are you having a childbirth expert on here? Why are you having this person? Because I have friends who just had a baby. I was telling you this on our get to know you call a couple of weeks back. Just had a baby and they went through some complications and it was an incredibly stressful time for them. Can you speak to the importance of a father's role in preparing for safe childbirth?
Absolutely. You guys can make a difference, the difference between a healthy baby and not. And you won't understand that statement until you read my book, but it's in there for you guys to know. Even chapter 7, I go over something called the baby advocate.
Mm.
So basically, mom's busy, very busy, mentally and physically trying to have the baby. It's a lot of work for mom. Dads, you need to step in and make sure the safety and watch the safety of your baby and safety of your wife, because there are certain situations in hospitals, and it's not that maybe you have a bad delivery team, but you have to remember that when you roll up to labor and delivery, it could be a very busy unit. That's very common in the cases. And when it's busy, the delivery teams are running hard and they're thinned out. And when that happens, that's when things go wrong.
Mm.
So if you know what's in my book, if you know what's important about childbirth, if you know the common reoccurring issues that I see in my cases over and over and over since my first one in February 2003, you're going to have a heightened sense of awareness,
Mhm.
and you're going to help your wife make better decisions, because ultimately it is your wife who makes the decisions during childbirth. It's actually not the doctors,
Mhm.
it's not the nurses, it's not the midwives. They are the medical advisors, and you're making the decisions. So to make sure you can make good decisions, you got to know some things about childbirth. You got to know what's in my book, because you don't know what you don't know. So it's very important. So chapter 7 really kind of shows dads like, hey, this is how you can be an advocate for your
Mm.
wife, for baby. At the end, I give like, here's 5 things that you really need to know. So let's say you don't want to read my book, that's fine, but you're gonna. And actually, right now, this is on my website, because I had a great podcast, and I'm like, you know what? I'll put chapter 7, baby advocate up. You can go on my website right now, ginamundy.com, and I have a chapter on baby advocate up. And at the end are like literally the 5 things that a baby advocate really should know,
Mm.
just to help, make sure everything's good. But, for instance, like I said, a common issue in these baby cases is busy labor and delivery unit. So we had
Yeah.
one really sad case, where basically mom walks in, and dad and grandma, and they're all excited, first baby, it's going to be great, and they get in, and there's some concerns about the baby.
Mm.
Well, the unit was busy, so they were kind of reassured, but maybe they didn't give the baby as much attention, whatnot. But the delivery team left the room, and they're like, hey, we'll be back. So um basically, baby's inside mom. So to know how your baby's how baby's doing, you really have to have an understanding, even just basics of the baby's heart rate,
Mhm.
because that'll tell you, like, I can look at a baby's heart rate and I can look at it and say, okay, baby's a rock star right now, or baby's in some serious trouble.
Mhm.
So I put some of that stuff in my book, because that's important. You should know that, especially if you have a delivery team that's with another patient. Anyway, there were some concerns about the heart rate. They laughed. The heart rate stops graphing, but the family doesn't understand how important it was that day to keep the baby on the monitor. The delivery team was out running hard with the other patients, trying to, do the best they can. They come back, the delivery team, the nurse actually
Yeah.
comes back first, and she's like, oh, the baby's heart rate's not graphing. And she tries to, make it, fix the heart rate monitor so they can see how the baby's doing. They can't. There's no heart rate.
Mm.
They call the doctor. Doctor does an ultrasound, and the baby had passed away when right after the delivery team had left the room. But the family had no idea how important that heart rate is, especially when there's a concern about the baby.
Mm.
So that stuff, like, I cover in my
Mm.
book, because it's more like working with your delivery team
Yeah.
and knowing just a few things, where if that family was like, hey, yo, my can't see my baby's heart rate, we've had some concerns,
Yeah.
that baby would be alive today. But instead,
Yeah.
it's a family, and it was a heartbreaking, case.
Yeah. There's the regular case, classes that people go through. I remember when Kim and I were expecting, my oldest's name is Maya. She's 11. And I remember the first one, you're so excited, you don't really know what to expect. You're doing all the things. Like this office was a very different color about 11 years ago. This was the nursery, and you're doing all those things, and you get really distracted by the excitement and the hope of what's to come. And we do the prenatal classes and we do all of that. And I think one thing I learned through the birth of both of our kids is that those prenatal classes, while they were nice to go to, nothing stuck through the actual birth delivery process. Like everything was different than what they had planned out. Why is your book a different tool to prepare for a safe childbirth than perhaps another pregnancy book or a class that parents can take?
Oh, there is no book like mine at all. This is a childbirth attorney writing a book. And basically, we talked about this in pre-show, but I have 3 kids. I have 2 daughters who are 15, 19. So I wrote the book kind of for them. But that's how it all started. And because how I would prepare my kids for childbirth is completely different than how a traditional family is going to prepare for childbirth. This is completely different. So, yeah, and I loved what you just said, by the way, because every new parent is like, oh my goodness, what color are we going to paint the nursery?
Yeah.
What cute clothes are we going to buy? What diapers, strollers, and everything is so great. And me as childbirth attorney, I'm like, whoa. Okay, the most important thing you can do is make sure your baby gets here safely.
Yeah.
So in my book, it starts off chapter 1, and actually chapter 1 is going to stay on my website. This is the most important chapter in the entire book. It is all of the lessons from the baby cases. So whether it's a lesson from the family, whether it's a lesson from the delivery team, whether it's a lesson from the medical experts, these are the basic lessons that you can learn from what's happened in the past in hopes of preventing it in the future. And then each lesson then is then a subsequent chapter. So it elaborates on it or whatnot. So even if you just have the basic, like these are your lessons, this is what you should know, that is just huge.
Hey guys, I wanted to take a moment and talk about our community of DMD brothers in the DMD Mastermind. We are men who help each other to stay focused and intentional in our pursuits of personal, professional, physical, financial, emotional, and spiritual growth. We are a community of men who bring courage, wisdom, and transparency to unfiltered conversations that challenge us to be more impactful men, to be dads making a difference. We do this through our online and in-person events where men come together to speak into each other's lives and then turn around and do the deep work to create change in their families, in their businesses, and in the community around them. If you are wondering if this community might be right for you, you can find more information on the DMD Mastermind, and you can also book a call directly with me at dmdmastermind.com. Now, let's get back to our show.
But one of the most important chapters in my book is chapter 11. And what I did there is I give the top 10 most common issues and like reoccurring facts in a baby case. So the most common fact in a legal baby case is the use of a drug called Pitocin. Pitocin is used to induce mom's labor. So my first case, February 2003, until today, the most common words I read in a baby case, mom is being induced with Pitocin. Okay, so now we know Pitocin and mistakes can go hand in hand. Well, I've seen the Pitocin inductions gone wrong since February 2003. So there's a whole chapter on how to have a safe Pitocin induction. So it's things like that. Another common issue in these cases, like I just said, busy labor and delivery unit. So remember, babies come when babies want to come. This is not a surgical center where everyone has surgeries one has a surgery at 9, one has 10, one's 11 a.m. And the hospital can staff accordingly. It's not like that in childbirth. You could roll up and be like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So, that's important to know. So I say, hey, busy labor and delivery unit, this is what you need to know. Great. Another reoccurring issue, in fact, in these cases, when something goes wrong with baby during labor, it is always after mom's water breaks. So,
So
doctor,
after,
yeah, so doctor comes in and says, hey, I want to break your water. You're
yeah,
going to be like, well, is there a medical reason for this, or do you want to be home for dinner? Which
yeah,
one? So
yeah,
that's an important decision. So, I had a podcast and somebody's like, why is this information just surfacing? And I'm like,
yeah,
I don't think a childbirth attorney ever thought to write a book.
yeah,
Literally. I mean, it's literally that simple. And even when I was writing it, I'm like, who is going to buy my book? I'm like, I'm just a childbirth attorney. But then as I was writing, I'm
yeah,
like, oh, I know a lot. Oh, thank goodness I was able thought to, write this before I died or something happened to me,
yeah.
But we had actually like a near tragic family, event that really kind of was like, oh my gosh,
Mm.
I have to, there's, I know stuff. So
Mhm.
it's in the book, but no, I mean, it could be, like you said, life changing for a family. And that's why I wrote it. I want it to be life changing. I don't want these complications and mistakes to occur. I'd rather not have a job.
Yeah.
So, so it is, it's very important. There's thousands of hours into this book. It took 14 months. I got up, I still do actually to this day at 3 a.m. I wrote the book in the middle of the night. I'm still a practicing partner at a law firm, childbirth attorney. So, basically everything I know is right here,
Yeah.
right in the book.
Yeah.
So, so
Amazing.
again,
Yeah.
I would suggest reading it if you want to make sure, you have, that you enjoy that powerful moment when you hold your baby for the first time.
Yeah. Gina, I'm going to ask you a question that I think the other dads in here are probably putting together in their head, because you mentioned that your oldest is 19 and you started this practice in law in 2003. So I'm doing the math here. And you're a mom who's had 3 children. What does Gina do when she's preparing to have her 3 kids that other people aren't doing, because you know what you know?
All right, it's in the book. So, baby lawyers have elective C-sections at 39 weeks.
Hmm.
We don't,
Yeah.
we're too scared.
Yeah.
But I will say, so my first baby was in 2004. Elective C-sections at 39 weeks. Nah, they weren't really cool with it. I'd only been practicing a year. I hadn't seen that much, but all the childbirth attorneys who were likewise pregnant were literally making up stories to have, their
Yeah.
baby by C-section. So they're like, Gina's C-section. And I'm like, I know. So, we were just playing it by ear. And then I woke up just in hardcore labor. And I mean, I thought I was going to have the baby on the way to the hospital. I get to the hospital and, because I'm a childbirth attorney, the baby's heart rate dropped a couple of times and they're like, emergency C-section. So there wasn't much preparing and planning. But no, it's in the book. We basically we're too scared. We do elective C-sections.
Yeah. Just, you know, too much.
We know way too
Yeah.
much,
You know
but
way too much.
I'm not sure that I'd recommend it. It's hard, 3 C-sections on a mom. I mean, my last baby was at 38 weeks. It's rough. It's a
Yeah.
huge surgery. So, it's not even how I would prepare my children. I'm not sure I would really push 39-week elective C-section with my kids.
Hmm.
I wrote the book like they're going to choose labor and it's
Yeah.
going to be okay. And this is what they need to know.
Yeah. Amazing. That's good to know as well, because you
I
look at
know.
your, these young women that are growing up in your home, and you want the best for them and their families. And yeah, I think that's just as valuable of an answer as you saying, hey, elect a 39-week C-section. This is what we're doing because I know too much, to saying, but for my own daughters, this is what I'm preparing for. And so I think that speaks volumes about the work that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Very cool. Gina, I have some other questions for you, not really based on the book, but just out of pure curiosity. And I hope you don't mind. You you're very busy. Like, you have a lot of stuff going on. I'm looking into your bio. You're a partner in the law firm. You're working through all this stuff for the last 20 years. How do you balance that with being a mom and being a wife and your husband's busy. He's a business owner. And how do you make this work for your family?
Oh, we get tag team,
Yeah.
like divide and conquer, you name it, everyone, but just communicating. So I'm a litigator, so I get really busy, and then I'll slow down a little bit. My
Hmm.
husband's the same way. He has his busy, time with his company. So, whatever we're doing, we're just trying to work together, communicate. But I'll tell you, one thing is when I'm really busy, he's really good at doing the dishes because if he doesn't, I get super irritable. So I'm telling you, if you have a busy wife and you
Yeah.
want to make her happy and not cranky, do the freaking dishes. I don't know how is like a chick's job, but get the dishes done. That's
Yeah.
that's literally.
A
But
simple act of service goes a long way.
yeah, so it's doing whatever we have to do. But like I said, my schedule is 3 a.m. I get up every day at 3 a.m. Tomorrow, actually, I get up at 2:30 a.m. because I have a 3:30 a.m. podcast in Australia.
Wow.
So yeah, so right after this, I hit the hay. But running hard, but sacrifice. Just making sure kids are priority though. That's probably
Yeah.
number one.
Yeah. Amazing. Gina, I always ask our guests one question. And this is the only question I ask all our guests. But, as a mom right now, what is one area of growth or an area that you're learning in that you're really excited about diving into right now?
That is a great question. We move so fast that I don't think I ever stop to even think about that because it's just go, go, go,
Mm.
go. But probably one area I do need to grow. Like I'm like, kids are my priority. Well, kids are also my priority because I've been getting a lot of crap lately that they're not. So, one area I am trying to go, like my nine, I'll tell you was it 2 months ago? It feels like it was yesterday, but my 9-year-old sits, in front of my desk and cries and says, I want my mommy back. So one thing I have been working on is just, keeping them like actually spending quality time with them and actually communicating with them. Not how was your day at school? It's all right. So what did you learn today? How are your friends? How was lunch? Like actually trying to communicate with them. So we're way better right now. But up until I published the book June 2023, and I would
Yeah.
say probably at that point, they're like, Mom, you don't care about us. You love your book only. And I'm like, no, I had to write the book. Didn't have
Yeah.
much time. So, I've really focused on making them like number one. My social life's basically out the door. My house is a mess. So just basically working on just trying to have these really good relationships with my kid and being, what is it? What's the word? Like there, being present in that moment, not
Yeah.
on my phone, not trying to respond to, one of my assistants. Hi, I can do this podcast or schedule me for this meeting or,
Yeah.
just being there with them. So it's probably one of my biggest growth areas, especially since June of this year.
Thank you so much for sharing. Appreciate the vulnerability of saying, "Oh, life is moving so fast right now. I'm not quite sure." Um, Gina, thank you so much for time today. If somebody wants to connect with you, learn more about you, and obviously pick up your book, where can they do that?
Oh, sure. So the best place to go is ginamundy.com, GINAMUNDY.com. And it'll take you to a link where you can purchase my book on Amazon. You can also just put my name in Amazon and it'll come right up. But then, yeah, basically there's a childbirth blog, like I had said. Right now I have chapter 1 and I think chapter 7 on the website for free. So there's other, some other resources that parents can go kind of to check out. The childbirth blog, my book was actually divided into two. So this is the childbirth one and I have a pregnancy one and I cannot figure out when this pregnancy one's going to come out. So I just started taking the content and putting it up there just so it can get out, just so moms, dads can like read, what I see, what's going through my head. And then I've read the book and I'm like, oh, I should have included this in my book, blog.
Yeah.
So, there's some other resources there that, it's meant to help expecting parents.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Gina. Appreciate you taking time away from your family to be here today.
Thanks, Cam, for having me.